Monzo Bank is under fire after their staff members denied Jeremy Hunt a bank account and criticised individuals such as J.K. Rowling and Jacob Rees-Mogg. Employees at the Challenger Bank dubbed the Harry Potter author vile in a series of messages that have been described as extreme. Evidence has also reportedly emerged of staff holding gender-critical beliefs in contempt. Employees have joked about starting a turf war. LGB Alliance have been accused of hate speech, and other staff members have quit because of the stress. So to get more on this, I'm joined by the writer and commentator James Esses. Welcome to the show. Thank you. So James, you broke this story about Monzo, and this is what they call a Slack channel, isn't it, where people within a company talk to each other, but it's still within the parameters of the official company behaviour, isn't it? It
is. It's the internal communications channel. Every member of staff can actually access it, read through different threads that have been started.
Yes.
And yes, as you just alluded to, there were some pretty, horrible things being said on these Slack channels about all manner of people.
And Monzo is people might not know it's a bank. It's one
online
of these
bank.
It's an online bank because it sounds like a Muppet bank or something. So it doesn't sound real, does it? But it's very, very popular. Now the staff who are in there talking about branding people hateful, bigots, turfs, etc. What kind of atmosphere does that create within any kind of company?
Oh, it's ironic that, Monzo claimed to be an inclusive and welcoming space, but actually what they're doing is making certain groups, certain members of staff feel completely alienated and excluded. And the problem is this comes from the top down. I was sent a list of threads, screenshots from this Slack channel. I didn't choose to name individuals because I don't want to cause a pile-on, but some of the individuals using terms such as turf in a disparaging way were senior HR directors in the company, and so that sets the standard for the other staff members.
Well, that's a real problem, isn't it? If you're a member of staff lower down on the food chain, as it were, and you don't agree with the boss who's using terms like that, that puts you in a difficult position. Basically, it invites you to just shut up, doesn't it?
Oh, completely, and that's exactly what's happened. Again, I've spoken to some now former staff members at Monzo who said they simply had to leave. They couldn't stand being there anymore and having their views and beliefs vilified in this way.
Now, Monzo might say that, well, these weren't external communications, we haven't put this out anywhere, so what's the harm? Isn't this their free speech to just share their opinions? What do you make of that?
Well, again, I'd turn to the fact that they're alienating members of staff, but we also need to consider the impact on customers, because if these are the views held by staff, in what way are they treating their customers differently? I mean, this whole thing came out because a member of the public came across some LinkedIn posts that Monzo were putting out about Pride Month, and he challenged some of them. And then he discovered that Monzo staff were looking at his LinkedIn profile quite frequently, and he put in a subject access request, and he discovered that there were Monzo staff gossiping about him on their internal channels, and he's a prospective customer of the bank.
Now, we've seen this a lot recently with, for instance, Coutts Bank and the Nigel Farage case, where banks are effectively deciding which customers they have on the basis of their political opinions. Now, there's been, obviously, as you've seen, a big backlash from all sides of the political spectrum, which I think is very encouraging. But why is it that this particular ideological worldview has so infected these financial institutions? Is it just that the people at the top don't understand the issues?
I think that's definitely part of it, but I think so much of it is just, they call it woke capitalism, but it's basically, virtue signalling in pursuit of profit. They think by ticking this box, by demonstrating that they are an inclusive, employer, an inclusive service provider, that will garner them more business. But increasingly what we're seeing is them putting off customers from joining them in the first place. So it's going to backfire, and it already is backfiring. It's
also very simplistic, isn't it? Because I think what they don't understand is that progressive pride flag alienates a lot of gay people, a lot of feminists. It's seen as a very regressive thing within activist movements. But they haven't even had the debate, have they? They don't want the discussion.
No, they don't. It's particularly interesting that mainstream views are being targeted. If we look at the Coutts dossier with Nigel Farage, and some of the things that mentioned in there, Brexit, well, the majority of those that voted in favour of Brexit. And equally, on the gender-critical stuff, we know that the majority of the population of this country believe that sex is binary and immutable. So to target mainstream views, what hope do people with minority views have of being discriminated against?
That's a particularly strange one, because in that dossier it mentioned that Nigel Farage had retweeted a Ricky Gervais joke. He's quite popular. So, if you're going to punish people for the jokes that they laugh at, that's just outright authoritarianism, isn't it?
Well, this is the utter subjectivity of all of this. Who are these individuals to make these subjective moral judgments about, any one of us? It flies in the face of open democracy, free speech and all the rest of it.
And I would have thought that if these major corporations and banks had been sort of flying the pride flag 15, 20 years ago when it meant something, when we didn't have equal rights for gay people, that would have been something. But they didn't do that, did they? And you'll notice today they fly the pride flag in London, everywhere. They don't do it in Saudi Arabia, in their outlets in the Middle East, where to be gay is illegal. And actually to fly that flag would actually make a difference there. But they won't do it because it's going to harm their profits, right?
Correct, it will cost them money. All they care about is the bottom line. But I think many of them are using their past failures, which we can acknowledge, as justification for doing what they're doing now. But the problem is they've gone way off the spectrum with this.
Yes. Now, you also broke a story recently about Costa Coffee. Do you want to tell us what happened there?
Yeah, so an image surfaced. It was sent to me from this Costa Coffee van from a Pride event in Brighton, and on it was a cartoon character of what I'm going to say was a woman with double mastectomy scars.
We can actually see the image there on the screen at the moment.
It is blue hair as well, for whatever reason that is. But, yes, I mean, you can clearly see those are double mastectomy scars, and the fact that it was done as part of Pride Month, you know, furthers that. A horrific image for a company.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, Costa claim that this image is just about inclusivity, and they're saying they're being trans-friendly. But the idea of double mastectomy scars, I mean, a lot of women go through breast cancer, and they go through that procedure. It's very painful and very traumatic. And to see the mutilation of healthy breasts, which is implied here, as being somehow a positive, uplifting thing, I mean, that's very insulting, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it's seen as just some sort of aesthetic change, whereas, as you say, some women have had their breasts literally forced away from them because they were unhealthy, but now people are given the option to have healthy parts of their body removed. And the way that these trans activists talk about particularly female bodies. I mean, I came across one person online who said, well, it doesn't matter, you know, if somebody, a trans person, regrets having their breasts removed because they can always have implants again at a later stage. I mean, this is the way they're talking about the human body.
That's quite incredible. And we're dealing with young people here as well, aren't we? I mean, a lot of young people who've had this procedure. And in America, some people very young. You know, we're talking teenagers. You know, it's really not... There's all sorts of reasons why we should oppose this, isn't there?
Oh, yes. I mean, I came across a surgeon in the States who's performing double mastectomies on girls as young as 13. But imagine what message this is sending to a young girl who looks at that Costa Coffee van, might hate their body, might hate their changing breasts, they're going through puberty. And here's a message to them that if you don't like a part of your body, you can just get rid of it. I mean, you know, it's atrocious. And it's, again, encouraging children down an irreversible medical pathway. And
again, we're seeing it quite a lot. I saw it recently in a Ben Sherman store. A photograph of a young woman who's had her breasts removed, clear scars, glamorising it, as you say. And, you know, and when you're, like you say, when you're dealing with young girls who are going through puberty, why can't we have the debate about why girls are feeling that they want to identify out of womanhood, out of femaleness?
Well, I mean, this is precisely it. And from a therapeutic perspective, if somebody's unhappy with their body, which is quite common, I'd say there's most of us out there who have some insecurities, and particularly young girls going through puberty, the conversation should be around how can we instill some confidence in them, some self-esteem, not cutting off parts of themselves.
OK, so is there anything that we can do when it comes to these corporations and these banks who seem to think that they can just push this particular ideological line without a discussion, without a debate, even though they're highly contested, and, as you say, a lot of these ideas that they're pushing are not shared by the vast majority of the country? Can we have a voice against this? Is there anything we can do?
Well, I think boycotting is one way to go, and that seems to have naturally come about itself. I mean, there was a massive call for a boycott of Costa Coffee after this emerged. I noticed that Coca-Cola, who's their owner, the share price dropped on the day that this all came out. You know, it's different to a historic boycott, which tended to be, well, I don't like a particular country's political stance, so I'm going to boycott produce from that country. This is very much, these companies are sending a message to us, actually. They don't respect our views, our opinions. We're clearly not welcome in these stores with the views that we have, and therefore we're going to vote with our feet. And that's the only way that these companies are going to get the message, because all they care about is profit and nothing else.
James Esses, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. So, a spokesperson from Monzo has said, our ambition is to make money work for everyone, which means that we're politically neutral and personal views play no part in our policies and decision-making, including eligibility for a Monzo account. Any suggestion otherwise is categorically untrue. We have a statement also from Costa Coffee. They said, at Costa Coffee, we celebrate the diversity of our customers, team members and partners. We want everyone that interacts with us to experience the inclusive environment that we create, to encourage people to feel welcomed, free and unashamedly proud to be themselves. The mural in its entirety showcases and celebrates inclusivity.